video, we'll be tackling some practice questions together that cover portions of the rules that we've already covered in our course. So let's turn to question 1, and we're going to handle it in that exact same fashion we've handled our other practice questions. The facts here in question 1 state that an attorney represented a telephone company in a suit against a customer for an unpaid telephone bill. The customer was not represented by an attorney. Soon after filing a formal lawsuit, the attorney contacted the customer and asked the customer if the customer wanted to engage in settlement discussions. The attorney stated that otherwise, his client instructed him to litigate the lawsuit against the customer. The attorney told the customer that he wants what is best for everyone, including you, and that the settlement could accomplish that goal. The attorney and the client entered into a fair settlement agreement. Is the attorney subject to discipline? So let's stop there and try to articulate the rule that's being tested by this question. This is a situation where you have a lawyer who's representing a party, specifically here it's the telephone company, who is speaking on behalf of that represented client to someone who is unrepresented. So what do the rules say about a situation like that? Well, the rules specifically tell us that when dealing on behalf of a client with a person that's unrepresented, a lawyer shall not state or imply that they're disinterested. And from a policy perspective, this makes sense. You're being paid to represent someone. It should be abundantly clear to the other person you're speaking to who you represent and whose best interests you have in mind. So with that in mind, let's think back about what our facts are telling us. Here the facts provide you quoted language. Specifically, the lawyer told this unrepresented party that he wants what's best for everyone, including you, referring to that unrepresented party. And that's problematic. This does not appear to be disinterested. In fact, this appears interested, relatively for everyone, which is not the lawyer's job. The lawyer should be communicating that he only wants what's best for his client, the telephone company. So because of this, the lawyer has unfortunately violated this rule. So let's remind ourselves about what the call of the question states. It says, is the attorney subject to discipline? So you'd be looking for a yes answer with respect to this. And that's because the lawyer is supposed to act like he's interested, and specifically interested on behalf of his client. And he didn't do that here. So evaluating your choices, starting with A. A says yes, because the attorney is not permitted to talk to an unrepresented party. Well, that's just silly, because if you're representing a client who's suing someone or has an issue against someone who's not represented, how do you move forward with that matter? Of course you can talk to someone that's unrepresented. You just have to be careful in which you speak to them. So A is wrong. B says yes, because the attorney implied that he was disinterested in the matter. This looks good. It is a regurgitation of the rule. It nails exactly what the problem is. So I think B is the correct answer, but let's review the rest of our answer choices to be sure. C says yes, because the attorney did not advise the customer to get a lawyer. Well, C is wrong, because a lawyer does not have to tell someone who's not represented by a lawyer to go get a lawyer. You should do that when the person you're speaking to is maybe confused or wants information about how to talk to someone who has their best interests in mind. But it is not an automatic requirement that a lawyer, when repping a client, has to tell the non-represented party that they have to get a lawyer or that they should get a lawyer. So that is not a requirement, and therefore C is wrong. D says no, since the attorney was being truthful and non-deceptive. So D is wrong, because maybe while he's being truthful, I guess, this is a little deceptive, because he really doesn't want what's best for everyone. He wants what's best for his client. This is the wrong standard. This is not what the rule says. Instead, B talks about the rule, which is exactly the correct answer. So B is the correct answer here. Turning to question 2. An attorney agreed to represent a client in a lawsuit against a hospital. The attorney used a retainer form that he had printed from the internet, which stated that the form could be used for any personal or commercial use. The attorney's agreement with the client provides in part, the client agrees to pay the attorney's fee for services within 30 days after receipt of the attorney's bill. Further, the client agrees to release the attorney from all liability arising from the representation. The attorney told the client that the client should consult an independent lawyer prior to signing the agreement. However, the client decided not to do so and signed the agreement without consulting a lawyer. Is the attorney's retainer agreement with the client proper? So here the rule that this question is testing is a lawyer's ability to try to limit his or her malpractice liability. How do I know that? Because the question gives you that quoted language. In the second sentence of it specifically says, the client agrees to release the attorney from all liability arising from the representation. So more specifically, this lawyer is trying to prospectively limit his or her malpractice liability. And the rules speak very clearly to this issue. They state that a lawyer may not make an agreement prospectively limiting their ability to a client for malpractice unless the client is independently represented in making that agreement. In other words, the client has to be represented by another lawyer in signing that agreement. If the client's not independently represented, then this agreement can't be proper. Here we are specifically told that while the attorney recommended the client receive independent advice from a different lawyer, the client didn't do that. The client wasn't told that they had to do that. Instead, they were just recommended. And when they didn't take that recommendation, the client still entered into this agreement with the lawyer, and the lawyer was fine with it. So that's a problem. So the call to question says, is the attorney's retainer agreement with the client proper? So the answer here would have to be no, because the only way he could really limit this type of liability is if the client had been represented by another lawyer. So let's evaluate our answer choices. A says yes, because the attorney advised the client to consult with independent counsel prior to signing the agreement. So A is a good trap answer if you didn't maybe fully know the rule. So it's good that the attorney advised the client to have outside representation, but the lawyer didn't go out of his way to say, we can't enter into this agreement unless you are independently represented. And here, the client was not independently represented, and the lawyer still agreed to this. So A is wrong. B says yes, because there is sufficient consideration for the agreement. So B, to me, almost reads like this is a contracts question, and this is not. Consideration is not an issue here. What's an issue is the lawyer's ability to ethically do this, and he's not allowed to. C says no, because the attorney used a form he printed from the internet. So again, C kind of misses the point that apparently the internet provider here says you can use this form for commercial or personal use. Now, is that a great practice for a lawyer to maybe take part in? Questionable, but that kind of misses the point. The problem is the lawyer is attempting to limit his malpractice ability prospectively, which is not allowed under these facts. D says no, because the attorney is attempting to limit his liability for malpractice. Well, aha, D is exactly what we're looking for, so D is the best answer. Turning to question 3. An attorney represented a plaintiff in a complicated medical malpractice case. The attorney was having a difficult time proving part of her case and was unsure how to proceed with the case. The attorney asked another associate at the firm for assistance. The associate had a lot of experience with medical malpractice cases. The attorney identified the client by name and described the entire case to the associate. The associate was able to adequately assist the attorney. The client was not charged more for the associate's assistance. Was it proper for the attorney to consult with her associate? So here the rule that's being tested here is whether or not a lawyer can share in client information with other lawyers in his or her firm. And in this case, specifically, maybe to get help and some insight about how to move forward. And the answer is yes. Lawyers can work and lean on other lawyers in their firm to help their clients. And in fact, that's why most clients like hiring big firms that are high-powered with lots of attorneys, because they know there's a lot of people there to help get them maybe an outcome that they desire. So here it's not an issue that this lawyer turned to their associate and described the case or told the client's name to get help. Now, had this client given specific instructions that no one else was supposed to handle the case or that certain people weren't supposed to touch the case, that's a different story, but none of those facts are raised here. So revisiting the call to question, it says, was it proper for the attorney to consult with her associate? I'd have to say yes, because the lawyers work in the same firm. And that's what makes this okay. Again, this is not an instance where the lawyer is reaching outside of her firm, giving up confidential information without the client's consent. So let's look at our answer choices. A says no, because the attorney told the associate the name of the client. Well, A is wrong. It doesn't matter that the lawyer disclosed this specific information to her associate. In theory, the associate had access to this information anyways, so A is wrong. B says no if the client's consent was not previously obtained. And as I mentioned, client consent in this instance is not required, so B is wrong. C says yes because the attorney and her associate work at the same firm. So C looks pretty good. This is why the lawyer can rely on her associates. So let's hold on to C. D says yes, but only if the client was notified of the associate's assistance in the matter. And D is wrong because, again, this is not a situation where the lawyer is going outside of his or her firm and giving up confidential information to outside people to get help. Again, this is all staying in-house. So we do not need consent. We do not need notification. So D is wrong. C is the best answer in response to this question.